Well, I've been looking at the press releases, right, of the organizations that are going to Chicago to celebrate the DNC. And when I say celebrate, I mean they're going to be in the streets with clubs and bricks and, bottles and everything else. More than 100,000 protesters expected to descend on the Windy City this coming weekend for the week ahead of the Democratic National Convention. Here are what they're complaining about. Their actions: genocide in Palestine and the war in multiple countries, continuing the mass incarceration of black and brown people, deporting millions of immigrants, neglecting campaign promises made to the oppressed communities who represent their voting base, and it goes on and on and on. These protests that we had on college campuses, the anti-Semitic outbursts that we had for pro-Palestinian and pro-terrorist organizations, are going to look like child's play compared to what's coming up in Chicago. I'll be there. I'll give you a front row seat, so we'll talk about that coming up. But joining me now is a man who's taking on some of these folks that allowed the Jewish students, for example, to be intimidated on campus. Daniel Suhr is the lead attorney from Hughes and Suhr, and it's Columbia students v. the Squad. They filed a lawsuit. Daniel, thank you for being here.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. Look, the protests aren't going anywhere, and it's just time for school to start again. I'm going to expect we'll see more of this going on, as Israel is not backing down on their efforts to destroy the terrorists completely, eradicate them. And, of course, you got the Hezbollah thing going on, so that could flare up at any time, creating big flare-ups on college campuses, Chicago, and elsewhere. But tell us about this particular case. It's a class-action lawsuit, and you won the Janus case here a few years ago, did your law firm. So you have high-profile cases. As they say, you've been there before. What is this case?
Yeah, Steve, you'll remember back in April of last year, the campus of Columbia University was shut down because of the dangerous, unsafe environment created by a small group of radicalized protesters on campus. And so I represent 5 Jewish students at Columbia who missed out on the spring semester that they paid for. They paid good tuition money to get an education they didn't receive. They paid for access to campus facilities like the gym. They paid for meals in the cafeteria. None of that was available because these radicalized protesters created such a dangerous environment on campus that they had to shut the school down. And so now we're suing them for just the basic damage that was done to the 30,000 other students at Columbia who followed the rules, who obeyed the law, and yet weren't able to receive the education they paid for.
Absolutely. Now, also included in it, this lawsuit, again, it's a class action lawsuit. 5 students are the class here, but I suppose others could join, if I'm not mistaken. But you've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Jamal Bowman, Ilhan Omar. They're all named here, too. Why is that?
Because they illegally came on campus and encouraged the protesters to continue breaking the law. We call it incitement is the legal term, but the basic idea is the First Amendment does not protect you when you encourage people to break the law, right? In fact, we'll all remember in January 6th, the irony here is that President Trump was accused of incitement for what happened that day. Here we had members of Congress showing up at an active crime scene and telling people, keep breaking the law. We're with you. We support you. We've got your back. Well, not only does the First Amendment not protect that, but when you encourage people to break the law, when you encourage people to damage others, you become liable for that damage as well. And that's why they're named in the lawsuit.
So let me ask you this. Did Columbia do anything to mitigate the damage of not being able to have, as you said, the gym, the food, the entertainment, the facilities, whatever it might be at Columbia? Did the university do anything to mitigate the damages to these students and to alleviate their fear going forward? Are they back on campus? Have they left the school? Where are we now?
Yeah, that's one of the things that's so frustrating here, Steve. Columbia has an independent responsibility under federal law to ensure that these students encounter are in a safe campus environment, that they're not subject to anti-Semitic discrimination. And Columbia, I think, needs to take that responsibility seriously here. School is going to start up again in just a couple weeks. We know from publicly available news reporting that these student protesters are ready to go again. They are not giving up the fight. And so Columbia and really all the universities need to learn the lessons from the spring and be ready to take whatever steps are necessary to have a safe campus environment for all their students, including their Jewish students.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, for all of us watching, me sitting here in the Midwest, looking at that on video day after day on social media, shocking. The level of hatred, the level of vitriol, the level of racism, of anti-Semitic comments, to me, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, we've seen the little protests in the streets of far-right groups and, Nazis and different things here and there. But what we saw was organized and hateful and dangerous, to the point that we saw Jewish students on some campuses, holed up in rooms trying to prevent the mobs from breaking in and beating them, maybe to death. I mean, the kind of fear that would instill in people. I mean, it's shocking.
You're absolutely right, Steve. It was really disgusting. It was atrocious what happened here. And, my plaintiffs are actually anonymous because they fear for their physical safety in bringing this case because they have been through this experience. They have seen the signs. They've seen the hate. And we have seen a number of vandalism acts and violence acts since spring targeting Jewish individuals. And so my plaintiffs are anonymous in this case, and a judge has allowed them to be because of the danger that they experience. And in this particular instance, because there are documented ties between the protesters and terrorist organizations. Like, we shouldn't understate just how dangerous the campus environment has been. And here this fall, why universities need to be proactive to ensure students are going to be safe.
Yeah, we're going to find out. I'm telling you, because 100,000 is what's estimated as far as protesters coming to Chicago starting this week, and I think the number's going to be far higher than that. Because for some of these kids, this is a social event, and it was on campus too. Oh, look, we're rioting. We're going to go ahead and attack and hate people that we don't know anything about, and that's part of the big, because we know how many people were on campus that weren't students, that weren't affiliated with these universities, that were allowed to come in and set up these tent encampments and bully and frighten and intimidate. So I expect more of this to happen. These lawsuits always take time. They're a process. Daniel, where are we in this process? How long could it take?
Yeah, we're at the very beginning of the process, Steve. We just filed the case this week, but I think your last comment's exactly right. This is about accountability. For so many of these students and their off-campus allies, the agitators, they at most get like a disorderly conduct citation. In this case, the district attorney in Manhattan dropped all of the charges. And so there's no accountability for what happened. These people broke the law. They damaged other people. And so our goal with this lawsuit is to create that accountability. And hopefully next time around, when on this campus or other campuses or in the streets of Chicago, when protesters think about going beyond what the First Amendment allows, when they physically attack law enforcement, when they destroy property, there needs to be accountability, and that's what our lawsuit is bringing, and hopefully will help deter that unlawful behavior elsewhere.
Daniel Suhr, greatly appreciate you being here, lead attorney Hughes and Suhr. Come back, keep us updated on the progress of this important lawsuit to hold these people accountable for sitting idly by while their students were intimidated. Suhr, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Steve. Have a great day.